Okay, we'll get started. Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca Lubert and I'm the Director of Career and Business Engagement. Thank you for being with us today. Our Ask a Recruiter resumes is the first in a three-part series presented by Avenica. Avenica is an innovative education to work platform focused on bridging the skills gap to connect people to better career opportunities. Unlike traditional employment agencies for college students, Avenica provides high-impact training, a comprehensive career discovery process, and personalized coaching, helping thousands of people launch meaningful careers. Thank you so much to Avenica for their partnership. Before we get started, we'd also like to thank our members and donors of the Alumni Association for powering our alumni webinar series. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to learn more about this opportunity, you may go to umnalumni.org/membership. Additionally, we like to point out some other Career Month events happening this February. We have, again, our Ask a Recruiter series and a number of other opportunities for you. You may visit that information on our website at umnalumni.org/careermonth. All right. Today's webinar, Career Month, is made possible by great partners that are shown on your screen. Our presenting sponsor is Freedom Financial, which is a proud sponsor of Career Month because quality education and career development align with their mission to help everyday people move forward towards a better financial future. Their suite of financial solutions has helped thousands and thousands of customers take control over their finances, reduce their debt, and get on a path to financial freedom since 2002. The UMAA greatly appreciates our partners who have made these events possible. Thank you so much. All right. So today, if you're tuning in, but you're using Zoom or in Zoom meeting platform. And so you may, we'll be using our chat feature throughout today to add your questions, to raise your hand and so forth. And so when we have our Q&A portion after our panel, you're welcome to raise your hand so that you may ask a question to our panelists. And then you may continue add any questions you have in the chat and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can, or if we can. All right, and let's move forward and we'll begin introducing our panelists. We'll begin with Erin. So for our panelists, Erin, tell us more about yourself and what you do and more about your role.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. So I'm a U of M alum. I graduated back in 2015. And currently I work for a company called Restaurant Technologies. I am a recruiter there and I handle operations roles for the southern and western regions of the US. So we work nationally. I don't know if you probably haven't heard of Restaurant Technologies. I hadn't heard of it before I started either. Basically, our company just delivers cooking oil to McDonald's and Burger King and lots of restaurants, but I handle recruiting, so hiring. So yeah, like I said, happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Erin. And next we'll have Misty introduce herself.
Hi there. Just had to unmute myself. I'm Misty. I work for Pace Analytical as a scientific recruiter. I've been with Pace since 2012 and have had a few different roles, but all within recruiting during my time there. So started off as our coordinator and worked my way up to the senior recruiter role. But my degree and background, I have a major in biomedical science, and that's really specific for our team too, that we like to have scientists on our recruiting teams because we recruit scientists for my division at Pace. So we have a variety of roles both in the lab and outside the lab, but taking care of filling those and supporting our clients is my role in doing all that. So I could tell you a lot more, but I'll keep it short and sweet.
Thank you so much, Misty. And next we'll have Madison introduce herself.
Everyone, so my name is Madison Hogg. I'm the Operations Associate at Catapult Network. I graduated in December 2019 from Minnesota State University, Mankato. Majored in communication studies, minored in HR. So in my role, I get to do mostly HR stuff, but also help keep the office running. I handle onboarding and offboarding with our candidates, anything time and attendance related as well. Payroll, I also take, I write our YouTube scripts and edit those videos. I handle our social media, part of the culture and communication task force. And then I also do different campus events like this panel today and career fairs and stuff like that. But Catapult is a specialized human resources company. So we help recent grads get connected to great companies to work for, kind of get your foot in the door.
Thank you so much, Madison, Erin, and Misty for your introductions. Before we get started, we're going to kick things off with a poll. And I'm going to launch this poll right now. It's kind of a fun poll to get an idea of where folks are at. Oops, sorry. Looks like my poll is not working, but that's okay. So the poll question, we're trying to gauge, when was the last time folks updated their resume? Do you typically update your resume once a year, once every few months? Are you just starting from scratch and producing a resume for the first time? Or has it been years since the last time you created a resume? You're welcome to chat your responses in the chat function, or it looks like the poll has showed up. So yes, feel free to respond to that poll, and then we'll try to reveal the results to everyone. Okay. All right, we'll give it about 10 more seconds and then we'll share the results of the poll. And if you're tuning in today, you may want to select the speaker view to make the best of your experience today by going to the top right corner for this panel and selecting speaker view. All right, now the results are being shared. And then you can see down just a breakdown of what people responded. And I'll gather information from my co-pilot today is Steve from the Alumni Association, and he's helping me navigate today's experience and helping with the chat feature as well. And so next we'll move on to our panel and our presentation today. So before we get started, we thought we'd go over some basic nuts and bolts of a resume and the different sections of a resume. And so with that, we thought about things that resume should include: suggested content and then optional content. And so when we think about must-haves on a resume, we think about the header. So the header would include your full name, your email address, and your phone number. And then your experience section, which is your work experience or other related experiences related to the profession you're applying to. And then your education experience. And the order of this would be dependent on how far along you are past graduation or how recently you've graduated. The next section here I mentioned is suggested content. A summary of qualifications would speak well to someone who has years and years of experience, who wants to summarize their qualifications and really point out just what they have to offer the profession that they're interested in. There's another suggestion here is a skills or certification section. So naming some of those hard skills that you've gained on certifications that are relevant to your field of interest. Now the optional sections here include some more specifics regarding your header, which could include your address, your LinkedIn profile, or pronouns. And the reason why the address here is listed as optional is mainly because some folks we know that folks are uploading their resume on LinkedIn or other resources, and to protect one's privacy, the address would be optional in that case. And then again, here for education, the education section also has additional optional items that you may include, such as your year of graduation, your GPA, study abroad, etc. And it's all dependent, again, as to when you graduate from university and how far out that was. And then in terms of content that you may want to exclude, depending on where you're applying, this information is specific to those applying in the US. So we do not recommend age, race, ethnicity, pictures, listings of hobbies, soft skills, and lots of busy fonts or colors. And this is also depending on industry that you're applying to. I know that in other countries, it's more than welcome to include photos and other more personal information because that's relevant in other cultures and what's expected on those resumes. So this is all related to anything in the US. And it looks like Steve, my coworker, has shared our poll results. Looks like we had 43% update their resume once every few months, 27% it's been so long I can't remember, and 26% once a year. Great, so that gives us some information to work with as we're kind of talking through some of the content today. Next, I'm going to present to you kind of a job description, and then we're going to present two different resumes, a resume that is in progress and a resume that has been more fully developed. And we're going to ask our recruiters to give us their feedback on the different types of resumes and what works and what doesn't work on those resumes. And so here we have a job description that Erin was so kind to help me put together about a food service manager. And Erin, would you kindly kind of point out some of the key components of this job description?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So looking at this, yeah, you're going to want to pull out, like Rebecca mentioned, some key components that you'll want to tailor your resume to match the job description. So the first one, hire, train, oversee, and fire employees. That's an important piece. So even if you don't have management experience, you're going to want to tailor to that. This is a manager role, so that's an important piece to focus on. You're looking at this, ordering food and beverages, overseeing food preparation. Those are just more attention to detail type of qualifications. So those are kind of more generalized, inspecting supplies, that kind of falls under that attention to detail. The compliance piece, ensuring that employees are compliant, that might be an important piece for this. The rest of it is just customer service and staffing. So those are kind of the big sections that I see when I look at this.
Yeah, so what we're really doing is trying to mirror our resume to the job description and pulling out keywords and themes that we're seeing in the job description. So we mentioned we see hiring, training, overseeing, a lot of employee management, a lot of customer service and quality of food and experiences, as Erin mentioned. All right, so next we're gonna show you our resume sample 1. And this is kind of the first part of it. So we're going to go through the resume section by section here. And for the first part, we're going to have Madison give us your thoughts on the header and what you would suggest here as far as the header.
Yeah, definitely. So they have the name, address, phone number, and email, which is great. I would say that the name needs to be bigger. You want them to know whose resume they're looking at. You want your name to stand out. Not obnoxiously, but you want it to stand out. So you could make that font size bigger. I think it'd be much better if you centered it on the page. That way it's just right there, easy to read. And then it's not getting lost in the rest of your resume. You want your name to stand out and then they can go through the rest of your resume. I like that the phone number is easy to read. They have the area code separated in parentheses, and then they have a hyphen in between numbers. So it makes it a lot easier to read. The email address also is simple and easy to read, just sponge.bob@email.com. You don't want some kind of like weird email. The one that you created in 4th grade probably isn't the one you want to use on your resume. So I really like that. To save some space, you could have the address, phone number, and email all on one line. That way you're saving some space for all the other important stuff on your resume.
Great. Encourage folks to maybe consider removing the hyperlink too, just because when it prints out, it may print out, darker than the other pieces of it. So keeping your fonts unhyperlinked.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and Misty, what would you say? How can this person improve their skills experience?
I mean, there are a lot of things you can do. I think everybody's skills section is going to be really different based on their major and their background. So it's kind of hard to say specific ones sometimes, but yeah. I feel like overall these skills are very general. Maybe like, especially with the job description we're talking about, they could really highlight some of these soft skills like that they would actually need in that position than just like a general resume with, I'm punctual. Well, if you could give an example of that, or when it was like really pertinent, like if it was a project or, certain things like that, versus just saying one word answer, punctual. So I guess I would just like to see more specifics related to the job, or at the very least, if you're a more entry-level candidate, just something more relevant even, I guess. And I guess I don't mind myself, like where they list the jobs in bold there, where they had maybe done that. But I also, I think if it's something really to highlight in a position, maybe consider putting that down specific to the job, and again, adding more specifics to what you're doing in that role and your responsibilities there, versus just plugging it in at the top if it's really that important. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're saying like demonstrating these soft skills in one's bullet points when they're describing their experiences rather than listing them here at the top.
Yeah, I guess that's what I think of. Maybe the others will agree, but I guess I do a lot of scientific resume review, and in the skills section, I'm looking for like instrumentation and lab things they've worked on, things like that, where you can kind of highlight some of this other stuff in other areas. But
yeah, that makes sense. Like including more of those hard skills, like you're describing more of the instrumentation, maybe research techniques, or other things that are really more hard skills that are more pertinent to that role.
Yeah, or sometimes people list softwares and things that they've worked with, and it's good just to list them at the top, but then once you have your jobs listed out, definitely list those, because maybe you worked in a job for 3 years at one place and 6 months with another, and then they're like, if we really need some kind of software or something, you're going to be like, well, did they do it in this job or this job? Like it makes a difference if the amount of time you did it sometimes too. So definitely just cover all your bases.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into our next section, which is the experience section. And Erin, I know you probably can talk a little bit more about the relevant skills here, and probably more pertinently that because it's just, in relation to the job description. Do you want to point out here what are some ways that you would improve this experience section?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the experience, you go under the Bikini Bottom bus service, and there isn't really anything that this candidate, that SpongeBob listed out, that's relevant to being a manager at the Krusty, or at whatever food service manager he's applying for. There's a lot of things that you could have listed as a driver. Customer service would have been a really good one to put here, since that's a big part of working in food service and also a big part of being a driver. You have to be talking to people all the time, really friendly. You're kind of the face of, the company. So that would have been a good one to add under the driver. I don't know that promptly gave effective service to the elderly and disabled and transportation needs really says anything. I don't really know what that means. I'm reading it. It should be a little bit more clear and just kind of blatant out front. So maybe effective, customer, customer service while transporting clients, something like that. And you do want to describe what the job is, but you also want to look back at, this job description that we have, and you want to tailor your resume to that. So, I think in this too, you could also use the word management. You're managing a bus of people, so you're not necessarily managing staff, but that might be a good, kind of placement for the word management. You want to get that somewhere on your resume. So, managing a bus, managing a route, timeliness, having to be on time, that's important, for a bus driver. So I think those are things that would have been better to list under this for this position that he's applying for. And like I said, if he's applying for a bus driver position, then maybe this would have been a little bit better, and you just want to add some more stuff about, the kind of bus you drove and things like that. And then, under the Krusty Krab fry cook, that's really where he could have, added a lot more. So, he has the training new employees. That's great, because that's a big part of the job that he's going to be doing. I don't think that putting stop to potential theft is a great item to list. That's great that you did that, but that's not something you need to put on your resume. It's just a little awkward on there, and it definitely doesn't need to be in bold. So I would remove that and then really put a lot more under that section because it's much more relevant than the bus driver job to what we're applying for. So, talk about your skills as a fry cook, talk about, a little bit more about training the employees, maybe make that into a couple bullets so that you really are getting, oh, this person really didn't train, new employees. What exactly did you train them on? Those kinds of things. So I think for experience, that's what I would suggest for this resume.
Yeah, it sounds like you're pointing out to folks just the idea of that the need to be more specific in describing your experience so that the other person understands what you did. In some ways, when you're presenting your resume to a recruiter, they may not have any idea of what that experience was like, even if it was at a different organization. So it's kind of important to really write out what those experiences were and describe it in detail, because I think sometimes there can be assumptions as to, what I did and what the recruiter thinks or knows that I did based on reading my resume. Okay, and then I'm curious to know, we're going to kind of go down the line, Madison, Erin, and Misty. Tell me other things that come to mind when you're looking at this resume, and what are some ways that this resume can also be improved?
Bolding needs to be consistent. The stop to potential theft is bolded when it shouldn't be. You want it to match all of the other descriptions of that role. I personally like when the dates are over on the right side. It also saves you space. It's one less line that you're using on something that could have been over on the right-hand side. And then also you just want to make sure that all of your bullet points have periods. You don't want to accidentally miss one. It just shows, if you have attention to detail on your resume, you want to prove that you do have attention to detail and that all of your bullet points have periods. As far as describing the experience, one thing I was going to add in is that Catapult recommends, so you want to say what you did, how you did it, and kind of the result in it, without making it a super long sentence, but kind of having all of those parts in there so that you really kind of paint a picture of what you did in that role.
Great advice.
I would say also, sorry,
No,
I was reading some of the comments come through in chat, and
yeah,
they kind of pointed out some good things too. There is a gap. Somebody pointed out there is a gap, August 2019 to February 2020.
sure.
If you have a good reason for that gap, you should address it at some, if it's not on your resume, address it maybe in a cover letter that you write separately. I mean, if you really were just unemployed for that amount of time, don't lie about it and maybe don't count it out. But if there is a good reason, like, some people took a break to take care of a family member that was sick or things like that, you don't necessarily have to, I think, put that on your resume, but you definitely want to put it somewhere else in your application, either in like a cover letter or in some other section where they're going to read through all of that at the same time and know why there was a gap there.
Excellent.
And just be prepared to talk about it in an interview if it comes up, I would say. Just because I do have a lot of managers that ask about gaps and what they were doing. And sometimes people have positions that they thought weren't relevant to put on there. That's why I would probably reference them, even if it's short and sweet. But yeah, just be prepared to chat about it if you have to with an interviewer.
I'm curious to know your thoughts about this mention here about references available upon request. Is that something still that's desired in a resume, and what is your take on that?
I would say no. I guess maybe it differs between companies, but I think that's a given and probably just a waste of space on your resume. If an employer needs references, they'll ask you for them. Personally, we don't ask for them in the application process. We used to, but now it's actually, if it's necessary, it's probably in the background check piece after you've received an offer. So I guess I would say leave it off your resume. You'll be asked for them if you need them, so have them ready. And also always let your references know so they return the call or answer the email quickly, because we have had people in the past not get positions because we couldn't get a hold of any of the references they sent, and they tried to get a hold of them themselves multiple times. So make sure they're reliable.
Great. Looks like there's a question here, and it kind of touches on this education piece. We haven't really touched on it. The education and the layout of that, we're going to show another resume in just a few, but what are your thoughts on the best way to demonstrate your educational experience, calling out the university versus the degree? What would you advise here?
I would think so I don't think the way that this is laid out is necessarily terrible. I think that the bullet point where they're talking about, wanting, I don't know that that's necessary at all to put under there. As far as, I mean, the degree is going to be the most important piece. So however you're laying out the rest of your resume, your experience, and you want to keep it consistent, but definitely I would put maybe the degree on top, or the degree first and then the university second. You still want to have the university on there, and your dates of graduation and all of that. So, and then I don't really think that this, like a former oceanology major, blah, blah, blah section is really needed, but this is where you can put other education that you have, or if you had like scholarships that you want to highlight that are relevant to the job, or even just to, if you're fresh out of college and you want to show, that you were very active and you want to, highlight those, or other certifications or studying abroad, that's where you can put that stuff versus just a blurb about what you're looking for.
Or even like the dean's listing and all the scholarships and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you want to highlight your, GPA, that kind of stuff too.
All right.
I would say maybe to put like what kind of degree, like Bachelor's of Science or something like that, a BA, whatever it might be, I think is nice to see on there too, just because it differs between different colleges and schools and all the courses you take.
Yeah, great. So it looks like we're gonna move on to the next resume sample, and this will probably be a lot briefer. And I'm seeing there's lots of great questions already in the chat here, and I'll try to address some of those as we go through. So now we see here another layout example of one's header. And so looking at this, you can see it's nice and clean. You can see that the name is big and bold, and the person has all their information nicely laid out here. And we can move on to the next portion and then quick. So I guess we're going down the line in terms of, let's see, like go Madison, Erin, and Misty. Maybe I'm messing up the order here. Curious to know your thoughts in terms of the layout and what's presented to you. What's working for this resume and what do you like?
Erin, do you want to start?
Oh, sorry. I thought Madison was good. Sorry. Yes, I can go. So this is a really nice resume to look at. I mean, visually it's really pleasing, which is important. It's laid out really well. It's very consistent with how everything is, bolded, the italicized parts. I like that the dates, I think Madison pointed this out in the last one. I like that the dates are on the right-hand side. It's a lot cleaner to look at. So as far as that looks great. It looks like, I mean, to me, reading through what they put on here, it does make sense. I mean, it's very short, sweet, to the point. It does touch on a lot of different aspects of each job they were in. So at least at first glance, I don't have too many negatives for this resume, unless, well, I'm interested to see what Misty and Madison say, but I like this one so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good. It follows a nice format. It's consistent. I noticed one thing just because I look at so many resumes and try to help people sometimes. On the first one, they have St. Paul with their title, and then all the other ones, it has a different format where it's the company and then the city. So look for little things like that. I mean, hopefully it's not make or break for a position, but it's also something to just be consistent with through the whole thing. And I guess as far as like experience for seasoned professionals, it's totally up to you how far you want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if your resume is 7 pages long, that's way too far back. If you have ones that are less relevant or so long ago that maybe your skills are rusty from that and it wouldn't be as applicable, you could shorten those jobs up and instead of having 5 bullet points, just do like 1 or 2. And I think that's okay. But, I've seen people kind of do it multiple ways where they just list a few and then, somehow note that they didn't include their experience from like 2005 and before, or something like that too. So I think even if you have it all listed out somewhere in a master copy with everything, so you don't forget anything or want to throw a job on there that might be more relevant to a food services manager or whatever it is, then you can plug that one in. So keep kind of a master copy with everything you want, and then kind of make a more concise version that's applicable to the job if you can.
So would you say is the maximum number of pages you want to aim for?
Ooh, it depends because sometimes you review people who are like closer to retirement age, and sometimes it's people who are just starting off. So I think it definitely depends on how far into your career you are. If you're a fresh grad and you haven't held a relevant job or like a related job yet, I would say definitely 1 is the goal. If you're further along, I'd say like maybe 2 or 3. After that, I think a recruiter or hiring manager is going to be scrolling through, and it kind of gets lost there. So don't cut out really important things, but also try to keep it concise and be able to elaborate in an interview or cover letter or something like that if you need to.
Right. All good advice. Yeah, it seems like, if something's so far out that it almost becomes irrelevant at some point, you definitely want to keep things that are more current, more relevant to the experience that you're applying to, and keep things that you want to talk about in your interview. So if there's items on there that you want to definitely touch on in your interview, then keep those on your resume. But your goal is to keep it as close to 2 pages, 3 pages max. All right, so looks like
Yeah. One little tip too, if you're making custom resumes for a job, make sure you're uploading the right one to the job, because it's really weird when you say like, I want this job at this place, or I just had somebody last week upload an offer letter as their resume instead and send that in. It's weird. So just keep really close track of those if you're customizing them.
That's a good point. I've also seen resumes saved with the other company's name in the title.
Mm-hmm.
And when you upload that to the system, folks will see that when they download those resume application pieces. There was another question here about education and placement of the education on your resume, and just thinking about so should you list your college graduation year? And then if you're in the middle of an educational experience, should you include that in your resume? And then where do you place your education on your resume? We showed an example of the education placed below experience, but I've also seen resumes with education further up. Can you explain more about that? And I'll have maybe Erin touch on it, and then Madison and Misty if that's relevant, makes sense.
Yeah, I personally like it at the bottom, the education. I like to see your jobs and your skills before I get to that, because to me that's, your education is relevant, but unless it's a position that requires a specific degree, your skills are going to be more relevant. I'd say maybe if you are applying to a job though that does require a very specific degree, maybe put it at the top. But other than that, I like it at the bottom. I think it's fine and it looks better there. I would say graduation dates. I mean, if you're worried about people trying to calculate your age, you can leave it off. I always put them on mine. I don't think it's bad to put it on, but if you're worried about somebody trying to calculate your age, I think it's fine to leave it off, just as long as you have your degree listed. Rebecca, what was the other part of that question? I'm sorry.
Oh, and when someone's in the middle of an educational experience, how do they list that?
Oh yeah, definitely put that on there. If you're, pursuing a master's or pursuing any degree or bachelor's, you can put it on and just put in progress. You can put your start date and then just leave it as in progress and put that as the top education that we see, so we know that's the most recent. And then anything that you have under that, you can list, like let's say you're working on a master's, put the school, the degree in progress, and then you can put the bachelor's that you have underneath that with the dates if you want to, and the school.
Definitely. You can also write expected graduation date and then list May 2022 or something like that. Would work out well.
Absolutely.
That's what I was going to say. That's why I definitely prefer dates on there, because you see all sorts of things on the recruiter side of things. So just noting that it was completed, that's why I love to see dates, just because for the positions I hire for, we usually do need a completed degree. So if it's more entry-level positions and you have people applying that are still in school, it's kind of nice to know where they're at and what kind of timeline you're looking at for that. And then especially with the with any other degrees or anything that you're in the middle of. But I guess if I could add, I would say education at the top if you're a fresh grad. I guess my positions almost always require a degree, and it's one of those where I want a specific degree like chemistry or something. So I want to see right at the top, like you have the science degree that I'm looking for, and otherwise the first thing I do is scroll to the bottom to see see if you do and if it's done and whatnot. So I think as soon as you have some experience, it probably drops to the bottom though, for sure. So.
Yeah, great. And what is your take on scholarships and listing those? You know, what role does that play in a person's candidacy?
I like to see them. I think it just shows, you know, that you went above and beyond in school, especially if you are a new grad. I think those are great things to put on if you are just graduating and you don't have a ton of work experience. It kind of is work experience. I mean, going to school is work. So you can emphasize those more. I left mine on after, I mean, I've been out of school for a good long time now, and I left mine on there. Employers don't care anymore. But I don't think it hurts to put those on as long as they're not taking up too much space or, you know, making it look clumpy.
Great.
Yeah, probably eventually you'll need the space and you'll want to get rid of it. But if you have room, might as well.
And Madison, I'll start you off with this question we have here. Some folks are asking about the algorithm to pick out keywords on the resume. So we know that there's a lot of softwares out there that are picking resumes based on number of keywords within a resume. You know, how does one kind of make it through that system? And, you know, how do you make sure that you have sufficient number of keywords while not losing the gist and desired content of your resume is the question that we have here. So I'm kind of curious to know your thoughts about resume tracking systems and all that.
I feel like Misty and Erin might have a little bit more to say about it. I know Catapult, we previously used a system where I could search a keyword if I needed to find one. I don't do as much of that kind of stuff anymore, but definitely use the job description to craft your resume. You know, you want to be creating a resume for every job you apply for, and you want to use that job description to make sure you are picking out keywords. You don't want to use every single keyword that they have in the job description, because those systems, the algorithms can pick out, you know, if you're more or less trying to copy the job description. So you want to have some, but not too many. As far as the exact number, I don't have an answer for that one. I don't know if Misty or Erin do, but definitely use the job description to craft your resume.
Great.
Yeah, I'd say the most important keywords if you're worried about a keyword search are, you know, specific systems or those kinds of things. If it's in the job description that we need someone who worked in a STEA and you have that experience, that's a really important one that the system will pull out, things like that. Otherwise, just the most important, I guess, aspects of the job in the job description. So if it is a management role, we're going to want to see the word manager. But I also think, you know, those systems, they became kind of big a few years back, and now we're kind of getting away from them again as recruiting in general and going back to, you know, wanting to actually look at the resumes. I don't know of a lot of companies that really focus so much energy on the keyword searches anymore. But it's still, you know, it's an algorithm, and if we're doing like a resume search or things like that in a recruiting database. So that's more where it's going to be important. But I would say, you know, the number of keywords, just pick out the big ones that, you know, it should be kind of common sense when you look at the job description, like what are the most important, customer service, things like that. Those are going to be the things that we're going to be searching. So if you think about like, well, if somebody's going to hire for this job, what would they want? What would they search for? You know, that's the way you can think about it. And it's like, well, if it's a customer service job, they're going to search for customer service. So then make sure that's in there.
Yeah, I think if you start off, like the whole point of it, if you start off with a good resume, you're going to come up in the searches. So ours isn't filtering so much for the job. We don't do that at all, actually, like you guys were saying, but I might be looking in Indeed and looking for a specific skill, and mine are usually like scientific and instruments and things like that. So if you started off with a good resume that actually listed your skills and the responsibilities you have, you'll show up, which is the whole point. So just be thorough and concise all at once and just put it all on there so that you do come up if we are searching for candidates and you haven't found us yet, you know?
Great. Oh, sorry. So yeah, we're kind of getting into all the questions here. So folks, yes, continue to add your questions into the Q&A here. You can also raise your hand and you can ask your question, you know, directly to our recruiters as well. We'll call on you if you'd like to do that. But it looks like we have some questions here and we have about maybe 5 more minutes for questions. Looking here, looks like there's a question about, you know, the importance of having a LinkedIn profile and having an online presence. Does that matter when it comes to being an applicant and looking for a job? Does that help improve your candidacy? What does that do for one? And I guess I'll start with Madison, then Erin, then Misty.
Want to have a LinkedIn profile, and that's where you can list every job experience you've ever had. You know, your resume should be tailored more to that specific job you're applying for, but your LinkedIn should show everything that you've done, you know, scholarships, different awards. Really, it should just be your full resume. You want to be active on it as well, you know, sharing articles, congratulating your peers if they find a new position, different things like that. You want to be active on that social media. Definitely be careful with what you post, as probably everywhere. Catapult personally recommends kind of locking down your other social media. We don't encourage any employers to search you on social media, but there are times that it happens, and you just want to make sure that whatever is out there is what you want other people to see. So just always be careful with what you're posting. Try to keep your social media pages on lockdown, but your LinkedIn should definitely be open for someone to search, so that when they do search your name, if they do, it's the first thing that pops up, and then they can see everything that you want them to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have so with LinkedIn too, it's really important to make sure that your picture is like professional. So not everybody can go afford to, you know, go get a headshot, but even if you just can take a picture of yourself against like a blank wall, you know, maybe in like a professional shirt or something. There's a lot of people that just put on like a cute picture of them with their dog, which is a really great Facebook profile picture, but for LinkedIn, that's really not what you want to do. You want it to look professional. So that's important. But yeah, I agree with Madison. I mean, LinkedIn, you can really put everything about yourself on there, all your skills, you know, and I really like when candidates have a LinkedIn. I mean, not all of our candidates do, and that's not necessarily the end of the world, but when they do, you know, you learn a lot more about them. And you can really, without putting it this way, but you can really make yourself look really good on LinkedIn. You can, you know, make yourself just look like great for an employer. So it's really important to definitely use that to your full advantage.
Yeah, I think we all would say definitely have one. If you don't, or you're uncomfortable or not sure where to start, there's lots of resources out there, and you can use it really simply, but I know of a lot of people who use it for job searching and are really successful with that. So I think it's just really nice. I mean, when I talk to candidates, they pretty much find all their jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn. So I think it's a really good tool for you to consider if you don't have one.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation today. Thank you, Madison. Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Misty, for being with us today and answering so many questions that we received from our participants. I want to thank everyone for coming today and asking your questions, and we hope that everyone got a lot out of today's conversation. We know there were a lot of questions that were asked in the chat, and our goal is to download the chat and try to get to as many of those questions as possible. So with that, we'll hope to send a recording within about 3 business days or so. Recording of today's webinar will go out to everyone who's registered for today. And we'll also try to get those questions answered as well, the ones that we're unable to answer. And we'll also send you a survey. The survey is to ask you about your feedback about today's experience. And we also would like to know your ideas or thoughts about future topics that you'd like to see the Alumni Association cover. So definitely fill out that survey. We look forward to receiving your feedback. And then we also encourage you to join our Maroon and Golden Network, which is our online platform for networking for students and alumni. And I'll send that information out to everyone after today. So thank you again so much for your time and energy, and we hope that you have a great rest of your week. And yeah, have a great day. Bye-bye.